Scarlet Vendimion was known throughout the kingdom as a beautiful and refined noblewoman, elegant in manner, flawless in appearance, and destined to become a queen. Since childhood, she had been engaged to Prince Kyle, the second prince of the realm, and everyone believed their union would bring honor to both houses. Yet behind her calm smile was a young woman who had been forced to endure years of humiliation and cruelty. She obeyed, smiled, and played the role expected of her. But one day in the grand hall before the entire court, everything changed. The prince who had been her fiancé for 17 years shattered their engagement and replaced her with another woman, and that moment changed everything. The story begins in the grand hall, where every gaze was fixed on one young woman, Scarlet Vendimion. With calm composure, she looked at Prince Kyle and asked him to repeat what he had just said. The prince, standing tall with a confident smirk, said that he would gladly repeat it as many times as she wished. Then, before the entire court, he declared that their engagement was officially over and that from that day forward, his fiancée would be none other than Terranezza. Instantly, the hall erupted in applause. The nobles clapped and cheered, calling the new couple beautiful and wishing them happiness. Terranezza curtsied gracefully, announcing that she was now the prince's fiancée and would dedicate her life to his joy. Kyle praised her kindness, claiming she was gentle and pure, the complete opposite of Scarlet, whom he now mocked as cold-hearted and unworthy. He said he regretted wasting 17 years bound to someone he called a disgrace, a mad woman who had ruined his life. Scarlet, however, stayed composed. She reminded him that their engagement had been arranged between the royal family and her house, Vamion, long before either of them was even born, and she asked if he really believed he could end it on a whim. Kyle simply smiled and replied that he could. He claimed that Terranezza had told him the truth, that Scarlet had bullied her at the academy out of jealousy and cruelty. Scarlet blinked in disbelief and calmly answered that she did not recall any such incidents and, in fact, had never even met Terranezza before that day. Kyle took her denial as arrogance. His voice rose, filled with anger, as he accused her of tearing Terranezza's notebook in class, locking her in a bathroom, spreading rumors, and even pushing her down the stairs. The court gasped. Scarlet could feel every stare burn into her. After a pause, she simply nodded and said that if this was how he saw things, then she accepted his decision to end the engagement. Kyle sneered, saying that she was only pretending to stay calm, that she was broken inside, and that the role of villainess suited her perfectly. Scarlet looked down for a moment, then lifted her eyes, steady and clear. She said that if everyone wished to see her as a villain, then she had no reason to restrain herself any longer. Still, she asked for one last request before leaving. Kyle scoffed, demanding how she dared to ask for anything more. But Terranezza, acting the part of a saint, gently said that it would not hurt to grant a final wish. Amused, Kyle agreed, saying that Scarlet could have anything she wanted, gold, jewels, a farewell gift. But Scarlet refused them all. Her final wish, she said, was to strike the witch who had taken everything from her. Before anyone could stop her, she acted. Scarlet's fist connected with Terranezza's face, and the hall froze as Terranezza collapsed, blood trickling from her lip. In that instant, Scarlet herself was shocked. She did not understand why she had lost control so suddenly, why she was so furious. Of course, she was angry at the lies and humiliation, but as she stood there trembling, she realized it was something deeper. Her mind flashed back to her childhood, to her brother Leo scolding her after yet another fight. He had reminded her that it had only been a week since she beat up a boy from House Alexia, and now she had struck another. Even though he knew she had been defending a commoner, he told her that her debut ball was approaching, and she needed to control her temper. Scarlet had insisted she had acted with reason. But Leo had looked at her almost sadly and said that when he arrived, she had looked pleased, her hands bloody, her eyes bright. It made her wonder even then if somewhere inside she had enjoyed it. Not long after, the night of her debut ball arrived. Scarlet sat alone, isolated from the crowd, when a young man approached her. He introduced himself as Prince Kyle, the second prince of the realm, and told her that she did not need such formality because from that day on, she would belong to him. That was how their long, miserable engagement began. From that day forward, Scarlet's life became one of endurance. Kyle took pleasure in humiliating her in public and mocking her every move. When she went to her father, begging for the engagement to be cancelled, her father only apologized and said that the royal family's will could not be denied. So Scarlet endured until she entered the Royal Academy at 15. There her talents shone, her beauty, intellect, and elegance made her admired by all. She ranked first in every exam. But then Kyle appeared again, mocking her and saying her father only sent her there to serve him. It was then she decided to grow stronger, to build steel within her heart. One day, as she was about to join her friends for lunch, Kyle appeared again, furious that she was not attending to him. He grabbed her by the shirt in front of everyone. Scarlet tried to explain, but he accused her of disrespect. When she apologized, he mocked her sincerity and dragged her away to punish her. Outside, he pulled out a dagger, threatening to cut her silver hair, her family's pride. Scarlet warned him that her father would hear of this and that he would be punished. But Kyle only laughed, saying that her father would never defy his father and that her engagement would last only as long as he allowed it. Scarlet clenched her fists, ready to fight. But before things went further, a calm yet firm voice interrupted them, telling them to take their fight somewhere else. A young man dropped down from a tree, Prince Julius, Kyle's older brother, and the first prince. He scolded Kyle, saying that his behavior explained why he was stuck in the lower curriculum. Kyle was furious, but Julius stood his ground, apologizing to Scarlet for his brother's cruelty and warning Kyle that if he continued, he would intervene personally. When Kyle tried to order his attendant to remove Julius, the man refused, unable to act against the first prince. Kyle stormed off, humiliated. Afterward, Scarlet thanked Julius. He told her that he was not sure whether he had saved her or Kyle, because she had clearly been ready to strike. Then Scarlet asked Julius why he was reading up in a tree instead of inside like everyone else. Julius just smiled and said he preferred being alone, away from all the noise and distractions of court life. Now the kingdom of Palicin had two princes, Julius, the first and rightful heir, calm, brilliant, and admired by many, yet quietly resented by nobles who thought his influence held them back. And then there was Kyle, the second prince, supported by a rival faction hungry for more power. Students often clashed between the two sides, though Scarlet, being ever composed, stayed out of those petty rivalries. But soon things between Scarlet and Julius began to change. Julius told her that he didn't mind spending more time in class anymore because he had found something interesting. That something, he said, was Scarlet herself. He told her she was more captivating than any book he had ever read. Scarlet found that irritating, thinking he was just another troublemaker trying to get on her nerves. Then came the results of the next examination, and this time Julius had taken first place, pushing Scarlet to second. The students were shocked. Scarlet had always been number one. Curious, she noticed Julius had perfect scores in both magic and swordsmanship, the kind of marks she herself had never been given. When she congratulated him, Julius replied with effortless confidence, saying first place hadn't been that hard to get. That stung, so Scarlet decided to take it as a challenge. She trained harder than ever, and during the next exam, she reclaimed her top spot. Julius congratulated her warmly, even resting a hand on her head, saying he'd enjoyed watching her work so hard. Her friends teased her, wondering if Julius had let her win just to see her reaction. Scarlet dismissed the thought, determined not to be affected by him again. But soon Julius kept showing up, greeting her in the halls, appearing in the library, always somehow crossing paths. Scarlet began to wonder if he was doing it on purpose, though he insisted it was just coincidence. He said he enjoyed seeing the way her emotions played across her face, claiming she was terrible at hiding what she felt. Scarlet scolded him for being rude. Still, Julius didn't stop. He complimented her silver hair, saying it was too beautiful for anyone to harm. Then, with that same calm tone, he said she was unlike anyone he'd ever met, and even pulled out a book with her likeness sketched inside, saying she was one of the most interesting figures his brother had ever told him about. Finally, he went as far as offering to replace Kyle as her fiancé, promising to treat her better. Scarlet politely declined, but deep down, her frustration toward both princes was beginning to grow. Then time moved forward, and we returned to the grand hall, the present moment. Scarlet stands tall, thanking Tereneza for giving her the final reason she needed, and then without hesitation she strikes. Tereneza collapses, blood spilling from her lips. Prince Kyle rushes to her side in shock, shouting at Scarlet, demanding to know what she's done. Scarlet simply answers that she lost control, that she hit Tereneza because she was angry. Is that a problem? She asks coldly, stepping forward as the nobles watch in stunned horror. Inside, she reminds herself of the years she endured, the humiliation, the gossip, the cruelty, all because of her engagement to Kyle. But now, finally, she's free to act. A nobleman calls her insane and orders the guards to seize her. Yet before they can even move, Scarlet casts a sleeping spell, and they all collapse instantly. Panic spreads through the hall. Another noble shouts an offer, his daughter's hand in marriage to whoever can subdue her. Scarlet knocks him down without hesitation. Someone else begs for mercy, but she strikes him too. As she looks around at the terrified crowd, she realizes these nobles have lived their whole lives in corruption and greed. Seeing their downfall fills her with grim satisfaction. Then with a sharp grin, she channels her magic, increases her speed, and declares that they should dance. What follows is chaos, a storm of motion and power. Scarlet punches through every noble who dares to move against her. Some whisper old rumors about a mad dog noblewoman, and Scarlet realizes with bitter amusement that those tales might well have been about her. Still, she doesn't stop. When the hall finally falls silent, littered with the fallen, Scarlet straightens herself and murmurs that it's a fine evening. Turning to Prince Kyle, she smiles coldly and proposes one last dance. asking if he'll lead this time. Kyle can't move. He's frozen with fear. Scarlet raises her fist, but before she can strike, her brother Leo bursts in, shouting for her to stop. And then, before he can reach her, Scarlet's fist flies. She punches Kyle straight across the hall, sending him crashing into the wall. The noise echoes through the stunned silence. In that moment, the nobles, once full of mockery and applause, see their arrogance crumble before them. The engagement is broken, and Scarlet, once the gentle, obedient fiancée, now stands in the wreckage, unbound, furious, and completely free. That night, the grand hall stood in ruins. Shattered glass glittered on the floor, and broken furniture lay everywhere. In the middle of it all stood Scarlet, calm, breathing hard yet feeling lighter than she had in years. For once, the weight of humiliation and restraint she carried for so long was gone. Then Leo rushed in, panic flashing in his eyes as he looked around at the wreckage and the fallen nobles. Scarlet felt a sting of irritation. She had hoped he would trust her judgment, not look at her with fear. A moment later, Prince Julius entered, composed even amid the devastation. He looked around with quiet amusement and asked what could have caused such ruthless destruction. His tone was calm, almost teasing. Scarlet faced them both and said the nobles had committed acts too vile to speak of. When she confronted them, they mocked her, so she acted. Her voice was steady, though anger still burned beneath it. For a moment, no one spoke. Leo stood frozen in disbelief. Then Julius gave a small chuckle, saying he had long wondered when she would stop holding back. Her fury, he said, must have been quite a sight. Scarlet only replied that she had no choice. Leo worried about the family's reputation, but before he could say more, Scarlet's strength failed her. She stumbled and collapsed. Days passed, then one morning, Scarlet awoke to the distant sound of church bells, the bells of the Church of Criminal, the god of time. The moment she opened her eyes, she realized she had overused her divine blessing. But before she could even sit up, she saw a maid on top of her, holding a knife ready to strike. Instinct took over. Scarlet reacted instantly, disarming the maid and sending her stumbling backward. Moments later, Leo burst in, his face filled with alarm. He looked from Scarlet to the maid on the floor and asked if she was hurt. Scarlet regained her calm and simply greeted him with a quiet, "Good morning." Leo ran a hand through his hair in disbelief, muttering that after 3 days of unconsciousness, this was how she woke up. He explained that the doctors had been baffled by her collapse and that he feared she might never open her eyes again. His voice trembled between relief and frustration as he called her reckless. Scarlet bowed her head and apologized sincerely. Leo sighed and forgave her, but made her promise never to hit anyone again. She refused, shaking her head without hesitation. Just then, Prince Julius entered, calm as ever, and remarked that their sleeping beauty had finally awakened. Later that morning, during breakfast, Julius delivered important news. Scarlet's engagement had been officially annulled with her father's consent. She accepted it without emotion. And Julius continued, Prince Kyle had been disinherited for the chaos he caused, and the crown had finally exposed his faction's illegal slave trading. It was a huge scandal, but it also gave the royal family a chance to purge years of corruption. Scarlet quietly asked if she would be punished for her outbursts at the party, but Julius reassured her she wouldn't. In fact, the royal family now considered her indispensable, though for the time being she might remain unmarried. Then, with a hint of amusement, Julius said she had gained something far more valuable. Curious, Scarlet asked what he meant. Julius smiled slightly and explained that her actions had become the talk of the capital. Everyone was now whispering about the woman who single-handedly struck down a hall full of corrupt nobles, the bloodstained lady. Leo sighed, pointing out that just when people had begun to forget her old nickname, the Mad Dog Noblewoman, a new legend was born. Julius chuckled at the irony but soon turned serious again. He explained that many of the nobles Scarlet had exposed were high-ranking officials and replacing them would take time. The biggest issue now was the Prime Minister, Godwin, the man behind Prince Kyle's entire faction. Leo added that the king and Julius had long suspected someone was manipulating the court from behind the scenes, so they'd secretly planned to expose all corrupt nobles at once. That was why they created the Crown Investigatory Office, with Leo as its head. Scarlet glanced at her brother, realizing this must be the reason he looked so tired lately. Julius teased her that much of his workload came from cleaning up the chaos she caused. Leo only smiled weakly and admitted it was partly true. Then Julius introduced someone new, Sigurd, the agent who had infiltrated Prince Kyle's circle and exposed the Prime Minister's network. When Sigurd entered, Scarlet recognized him immediately. He bowed and apologized for deceiving her in the past. Scarlet listened calmly and said she held no grudge. His loyalty to his prince, she said, had always been clear. Still, she admitted his acting had been quite convincing. Sigurd bowed again, asking for her forgiveness. Julius, amused, told Scarlet that if she still felt angry, she could punish him however she wished. Leo tensed at that. but Scarlet's eyes glinted with mischief. She asked if she could strike him. Sigurd nodded, accepting whatever she chose. Scarlet raised her fist, then stopped just short, grazing him lightly before stepping back. She told him their past was settled, reminding him that he once protected her at the academy. Sigurd humbly replied that he was only fulfilling his duty as a knight, but Scarlet silenced him with a sharp look. Julius and Leo could barely hide their smiles at the exchange. After finishing her tea, Scarlet quietly excused herself, but her thoughts were already racing. She knew her academy friends must have heard about the incident and would be worried. Still, another matter weighed heavier on her mind: the maid who had attacked her. When she went to the room where the maid had been detained, it was empty except for a torn dress. Before she could react, a wild beast leaped from the shadows, snarling. Scarlet dodged easily and knocked it down. Her voice turned cold as she ordered it to behave. Calling it by name, the Beast King Manaka, she told it to take human form if it wanted to speak. The creature transformed into a boy with a dagger, declaring he was there to kill her. Scarlet noticed the slave crest carved into his skin and quickly understood. She had offered him a deal. If she freed him, he had to tell her who sent him. Manaka hesitated but agreed. Scarlet invoked her divine blessing, reversing the mark on his body using the power of Chrono. The spell weakened her, but when it was done, the crest had vanished. Astonished, Manaka swore loyalty to her. He revealed that Prime Minister Godwin had ordered her assassination as revenge for his son, one of the nobles she had struck down. He had also told her that Godwin used slaves and spies to control noble families through threats and bribery. Hearing this, Scarlet's eyes hardened. She decided to confront Godwin herself despite Manaka's warnings to wait for Julius or Leo. When he asked why she always resorted to hitting those who angered her, Scarlet replied calmly that punishing the annoying was simply proper. Manaka laughed and agreed to help her. Together, they set off for the capital, Grana. 3 days later, they arrived in the city slums. Scarlet held up a dull piece of mithril she'd bought from a street peddler. Manaka scoffed, saying it was worthless. Then Julius appeared, saying he had joined them to see the kingdom's corruption with his own eyes, and, half-grinning, admitted he was curious about Scarlet's impulsive nature. Soon, a gang of robbers appeared, surrounding them. Scarlet's expression brightened dangerously. Manaka urged her to stay calm, but when the robbers mocked her, she crushed the mithril to dust with her bare hand. Terrified, the robbers attacked, but Scarlet was faster. She struck with precise, unstoppable force until they fled in terror, muttering that she was some kind of monster. Julius watched with amusement, saying that her unrestrained self was the most entertaining version of her yet. Later, he interrogated a middleman named Junk and claimed he did it without violence. Scarlet doubted that, calling him a con artist. Julius protested, but she only smirked, saying that manipulation without empathy was still manipulation. And with that, the three of them prepared for their next move, infiltrating the secret slave auction where the truth behind the Prime Minister's schemes was waiting. That marks the end of today's Anime Recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach a current goal of 10K subscribers.